Welcome to Turn Extension, a supplemental podcast for the Advanced Maneuvers YouTube channel.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Turn Extension, Mark III, Episode 2. Today we are going to be talking about Mark III. With you today is myself, Polar Bear Cub, or Tony.
Hey everybody, it's Kevin, Dowdark on the forums.
And Devin, Cutthroat Cure on the forums.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about Mark III. So let's kick off with, do we have anything that came in from Facebook?
So currently we went out onto Facebook and we asked our viewers to ask us any questions that they may have had going into this. And one of our viewers came back, David Canty, asked us, how do we think the meta is going to shape up with Mark III? Is Jack Heavy here to stay?
So my thoughts are, I think eventually we're going to see a shift probably within 4 to 6 months of the meta. I think initially we're going to see a lot of jacks on the table because jacks are a very new and exciting thing. Within the last 10 to 12 years of Warmachine being around, we have not had the ability and the access to jacks like we do currently. The ability for the power up roll was absolutely amazing. Other jacks became a little bit stronger within their mat. Just overall, I think jacks became better, and I think that initial hype is going to push a very jack-heavy meta. But for me, I think that as time goes on, we're going to see the counterbalance like we always do with Warmachine and Hordes, is that people are going to start making anti-jack lists, and it's going to eventually devolve into more of a balanced list.
So, I mean, I definitely agree with you. I think that jacks are the new hotness. You know, power up definitely brought it into the scenario, and I think a lot of people out the gate are immediately going, how many jacks can I put into a list and make effective? I know I've seen a lot of people talking about spamming jacks, spamming certain jacks, especially the really cheap ones, or the ones that I like to call budget jacks. But I think it's a scenario where if we're looking at both sides of the house, if we've got the Warmachine side who wants to do all jacks, and then we've got the Horde side who's always been heavy in the beast area, but Privateer Press went and tried to improve the infantry over on the Warmachine side, I think it's going to be a meta where battle groups will be large in the start, but and maybe you're right, maybe in like 6 months it starts shifting out. But I think what's going to end up happening is that the meta will slowly start shifting towards a balance level where it doesn't matter if you're Warmachine or Hordes, you're going to have anywhere from 1 to 2 units and maybe 1 to 2 support pieces, and then it's going to be battle groups. So it'll be 2 or 3 heavies, or and 2 or 2 lights or something like that, but it will balance out where there will be that 1 to 2 infantry units, and then it'll be battle groups. I think after it gets towards that stabilized balance point is when we're going to start seeing lists trying to counter lists, because right now you can't really build a counter list in a meta that is just volatile as it is right now, and everybody's just experimenting, which arguably is probably the best part of Mark III in the beginning, is that we're all kind of in this even playing field, or this unknown playing field of we don't know what the meta is. We don't have lists that are popular in a meta that need to be countered or anything like that, so anything really can go.
Personally, in this whole thing, I think it's going to, as we said, it's going to be really jack heavy right now. But I think how it's going to change is really going to come and become very apparent with the release of the theme lists. Mark II, you couldn't go to a tournament without seeing at least one theme list in almost every single army. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be very strong in Mark III, because we're not locked into having a specific caster playing. So depending on how those theme lists are going to come in, it might make us be or play more diverse. So whether it's going to be super jack heavy might depend on the theme list, whether it's going to be unit heavy. Once again, I think theme lists are going to change it up a bit. As it stands now, I think we're going to see a lot of jack heavy play, just because everybody wants to get their models on the table and wants to see big stompy robots. But I think that we're also going to see a lot of Hordes players playing more infantry to try and upset that, maybe have a little bit more control.
I want to touch on your comment about themeless though, because I actually have a concern over this. For those of you who don't know, basically when when this new edition was released, this all new war, there's no themeless in the game currently right now, with the exception of the Cephalix. But I have a concern because they started talking about how when themeless would be coming out, that they would be released by Privateer Press with an effort of like, here's your theme list and here's new models that might be related to that theme list.
That are only available through the theme list?
Well, I don't even know if they said that it was going to be only available to the theme list, but it was just going to be a scenario of that these models would be released, and the models in the theme list or new models that were in that theme list would be available at the time of the theme list. But I have a concern because there's no way that Privateer Press is going to be like, oh, you know, here's all 12 factions theme lists. It's going to be a staggered release where it's like, all right, here is the Trencher theme list that comes out in the book and the models that are around it. And then here's the Codor, you know, the Winter Guard theme list. And I have a feeling what's going to end up happening to the meta is that as these theme lists come out, they're going to be the targeted solution armies. Like, all right, there's this new theme list, we need to create a solution for it, and you're just going to have this meta that's constantly rolling and revolving based upon this new theme list that comes out every month or every 2 months or whatever the case might be.
So my thought is that I think it's going to be kind of like how when they rolled out Mark II, which will be possibly a book a month based on one of the factions. So I think it'll be more than just one list. Like, I think it won't be just like, hey, this would just be the Trencher, an entire book on the Trencher list. I think it'll be, hey, this is a Signar book. Here's about 2, 3, maybe even 4 theme lists that you can focus around and then kind of go from there. What it sounds like you're talking about is that there's going to be all of a sudden the power creep where, hey, every new book comes out, it's a very 40K GW thing, where the new book comes out, okay, this is new hotness, is clearly better than everything else. I don't think it's going to be that way. The downside is that if they put out a book every month, it's going to take from December till January of next year, so until January of 2018, to get all of those books out, which is really concerning.
See, I disagree. I don't think they're going to do that at all. I think what they're going to do, and if it's true in Privateer Press style, is something that a lot of people who have been long-term Privateer Press customers, is that they've always enjoyed the fact that when something comes out, everybody gets something, whether you're Warmachine side or Horde side. And I think that that's what we're going to see. I think that we could see a staggered event where you have a Hordes theme list book that maybe presents a theme list for all the factions, but maybe just one. And then you have a Warmachine side theme list book that has one theme list for everybody. And then they could stagger that out throughout the year, because it doesn't look like we're going to be getting many of the upgrade books like we have gotten in the past, like Reckoning, Devastation, Exigence.
Which, side note, I, for one, am really excited about that they are not going to be bringing out those books. The main reason why I bought those ones, purely for a lot of it was for the fluff. That's the only reason I really wanted those books to come out, because I wanted to see the story progress. Really happy with the new direction that they're going in, so that we don't see the model bloat in Mark III that we did in Mark II.
I don't know if that's necessarily going to save you, though, because so one of the statements that they made was that they were going to be removing the fluff from the books because the anthology books didn't allow them the ability to have a diverse story about certain casters or certain events or something like that's happening in the book. Because basically it's a scenario of, I've got this anthology book and I need to squeeze in anywhere from 4 armies on Horde side, or 5 if you count minions that are not a real faction. Yes, Gaston, you heard me say that. You had 5 on the Horde side, or you had anywhere from 6 or 7 factions playing with each other on the Warmachine side. They just didn't have enough room in the book to go through an in-depth, detailed storyline. So they pulled the fluff out so that way they could have, like, here is the book that is a Siege Brisbane book, and it's everything is wrapped around sieges, and then they do another book, and this is the Asphyxius book, and it talks about his adventures and whatnot. So they're breaking it out so that they can give more time or more spotlight to certain parts of the floor or to a certain story. It wasn't because they wanted to prevent rules bloat, because what ends up happening is, if you go with the example that Devin provided, which is, that you're going to have this one theme book and everybody gets a theme list and everybody's theme list still gets a model. You're still going to continue with the concept of model bloat. It's basically our anthology books that we always used to have minus the lore.
Correct.
See, but I'm wondering that instead of, that's my thought, though, is that instead of them coming out with just normal anthology books, at least for right now, they're going to be coming out with themeless books. And it could be that, hey, they come out with these, here's one set for all of the Warmachine and one set for all the Hordes, but at least it's still, we're not seeing as many new characters, new models on the table. It'll just be like, well, here's an alternate version. Like for Signar, they could be coming out with a precursor theme list, and hey, instead of these just being sword knights, or now these are precursor sword knights or something like that.
Well, what I'd love to see is I'd love to see it where it's like, because they've called out 2 theme lists that are already in quote unquote the works, which is a Trencher theme list and a Winterguard theme list. Mm-hmm. And I'd love to see a scenario where these theme lists come out and it reuses some of the units that are already out there, the trenchers, the commandos, the trench busters and stuff like that. But then maybe the new caster that comes out with that group is they make a trencher caster to go with the trencher theme list. Now, theme lists have already been identified as not being bound by a certain caster, but it gives them an opportunity to release that this is X units version of a warcaster.
I mean, but in all honesty, we have to also think at Lock and Load, we saw the Sea King for the Trolls, and they're obviously not going to base a theme list around that. So I do think we're going to see that theme of having a book come out every year for one of the 2 sides that introduces new models and possibly a new caster, because I mean that was something that worked for them, but maybe it'll be something smaller, maybe not a $40 book, but maybe like a $20 book that's something quicker because they don't have all the fluff and everything else that discusses possibly new rules, like the Gargantuan rule or something like that.
I mean, that's more than possible, and this is all wild speculation, obviously, because we don't know what Privateer Press is doing. The keynote wasn't exactly overburst with information of what's going on in the theme list, just the fact that it's coming in December, which, I mean, a lot of people were like, oh, this sucks, the themes lists don't come out, and I kind of slightly feel for people like Minions who are really looking to get back into their Thornfall or their Blindwater congregation. But in the end, a lot of people need to take a step back and look at it and go, this is giving us 6 months of no theme list to learn this new edition and not necessarily have to be like, all right, well, I've got to learn this new edition, and in the mix of learning this new edition and the new rules and the new changes, I've also got to learn this new theme lists that aren't caster bound, so they could be applied across the board to all the casters. So basically, Privateer Press is giving us 6 months to concentrate and learn and focus on just the core rules and the rules changes that has happened on each of the cards, and then after that 6 month time period, giving us these new theme lists or these new breakouts, so that way we can kind of consume it over a certain stage of time.
Which that's really nice. And also on the other hand, I mean, they're still playtesting a lot of these things. So a lot of the stuff still doesn't even, it's not ready to go, which is, I'm happy that they are taking the extra time to playtest it. They gave themselves a deadline of December, so they have to be close to it, finishing those theme lists soon. But at least they weren't like, hey, we're going to put out this new edition, and we're going to put out theme lists, because that's what they did during Mark II. Is when those brand new books rolled out, Signar being the very first one, I think it was in February or March. I'm pretty sure it came out in February of 2010 or 2011, when those came out right with the brand new book, and they were just, they didn't evolve in the way that, we kind of saw the later books come out with, and even the later theme force. So at least with this now is, hey, we get our initial rules, and 6 months from now, we get theme lists that seem more flavorful and more balanced, and probably going to be a hell of a lot more fun to play than what the initial ones were back from Mark II.
So David also had a second question for us. He also asked what we thought were the perceived winners and losers of Mark III.
I don't really see where we're at with losers yet because I think we're too early. And as I say this, I'm going to talk about the winners. But I don't really want to talk about the losers right now personally because I don't know if there are necessarily any losers quite yet. I think there's just a lot of, hey, we don't know necessarily how these interactions are going to look at. But for the top 3 winners, I've got to go first Signar because I think Signar just did so well. I think a lot of their casters, the casters that were kind of iffy, became a lot more exciting. There's only one exception to that, which I'm a little sad about, which is Darius. And I'm sad about that with Darius because the amount of grievous wounds that have come out in Mark III really hurts his feet. Other than that, I think Signar has come out very strong. The second thing is I'm going to say is Retribution. I think Retribution has a lot of cool things that are happening. They're a little bit more infantry focused, it looks like, than any of the other factions. So pretty pumped about that. And then the third one, I've been going back and forth on this, and I think it's going to be Khador. I really think that Khador is actually looking really strong for Mark III. Again, they have a lot of things that are going for them. Their jacks are, I mean, if you guys watched our first introduction to all this fun stuff that is Mark III and all of our videos, and just holy crap, there is a lot going on with Khador, and their jacks are awesome now.
And who's your third?
Khador, because I did Signar, Retribution, and Khador. Thanks for listening to me.
Well, I mean, I didn't really count Retribution. They're not really a faction. Ouch. Again, you heard me right, Gaston. I think so. I completely agree with you. I think we're way too early in the game to even declare winners and losers. Anything that we say is purely based on a week or two of seeing how things roll out. So I think it's way too early to determine. We could have, Crix, everybody currently right now is maligning Crix. It's like, oh, Crix is horrible, Crix is worse. And then somebody's going to come across and find the power combo that destroys all jacks on the table because it's Weapon Master's Crix. And all of a sudden, this huge jack meta goes bye-bye because Crix becomes the predator of all these jacks. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it's a potential possibility. If I were to be held at gunpoint and said you have to choose the top 3, I definitely agree with you on Signar. I think the fact that pre-measuring just allows so much of the shooting game to maximize its potential with limiting its risks, and that was always a risk with Signar is you've got all these guns and you have all this ability to shoot an alpha strike, but the second you get engaged, you're boned. I think that it's a bit of a double-edged sword, though. I think that Signar players need to recognize, yes, I can shoot you at 14 inches away and you have no reprisal because you can't charge me. You can only walk up or run up to engage. That's all well and good, but if you don't commit to the zone or you don't commit to the scenario, you are 100% boned because, yes, you can shoot me all day long, but I'm scoring points and you're not. So I think that Signar is strong, but it has its weaknesses in the scenario that it needs to recognize, with the exception of some of the Signar casters like Maddox or Striker who love to get in the scenario because they want to stick their sword where the sun don't shine. I'm going to stick with Khador just because you said it, although initially I felt like Khador was strong and I was being biased about it because I'm trying to play Khador in this new edition.
The new addiction?
It's my new addiction, yes.
Just tap those veins.
Just call it out. Plastic crack is crack. I think they're strong. I think that one of the issues that Khador had, or Khador, however you want to pronounce it, had in Mark II was that they had some really good jacks, but the jacks were just not focus efficient, or they didn't have casters that could necessarily support them in a way that they would be focus efficient. So I think now that we've got stuff like Power Up, the casters can put up spells in turn 1 and be able to upkeep them without necessarily having to go, do I run my jack or do I not? Because a non-running Khador jack is a really sad jack on turn 1. But I think their Jacks a lot more potential to them. I think they have some game in the infantry because they had really strong infantry to begin with, and some of that infantry was toned down. Some of the defenses came down because Privateer Press was like, look, you guys are on a defense faction, you're an armor faction, act like it. So a lot of that was kind of toned down, but I think they're still strong. A lot of people are poo-pooing the Doom Reavers. I think the Doom Reavers actually still have a lot of play to them because they are advanced deploy, so they have an increased speed that some of the other Khador things don't have. And then it's, I don't know, I feel like they're strong. I don't know if they fall in the second or third spot, but I feel like they're in the top 3 for discussion. And again, I don't know if this is biased or not, but I think that Trolls have a really strong game. Of the Hordes factions, I feel like they are probably the best of the 4, because again, minions aren't a real faction. So I think Trollbloods have a strong potential. They did have some issues with them with how tough was changed, but it's a scenario where a lot of people felt that was an expected change. We knew that was going to happen. But one of the big things about Trolls was, besides Mulg and a light in the version of the Axer and the Impaler, we had very little reach. And the change in Mark III of all heavy War Beasts and Warjacks have that 1-inch range now means that it's not 2. We don't have another reach. But these heavies now have threat that they didn't have before. So I think that the ability of Trolls to be able to engage easier is going to extremely help them in being, one of the top contenders. I still think their infantry is solid. They've just got a metric ton of shield guard, and in a shooting meta, having shield guard all over the place is great. And then also to the fact of, back in Mark II, Troll, defense troll, or aka defense 12, used to be kind of a jokeable thing of, oh, I've got defense 12, you can hit me, no problems. But we're starting to see defense slowly being shifted down, and now it's a scenario where it's, I don't know, it's Trolls are better. Like, they have better defense than they did before, and by default of everything shifting down, not because Trolls were lifted up. So I think between Signar, Khador, and Trolls, those are probably going to be my top 3 picks. You can decide if it's based on bias or not.
I am going to have to agree with 2 of those, with 2 of the ones that you guys have brought up. If you had asked me a few weeks ago, right as soon as we left Lock and Load, I would have definitely said my top 3 were going to be Signar, Khador, and Circle. But as the more I've been playing, I would definitely have to say that my first one is actually a toss-up almost evenly between Khador and Signar, like for number 1 spot. And they're so close in that fact that I can't put one of them in the second place spot, because in a game that has now a lot of things, power has been toned back, something that has super, super high armor is going to be able to take a lot of damage, especially with all the new ways to heal things and get things out of the way, reposition and such, that Khador has such a strong play on scenario, jamming, everything. So I think they're a very good spot. But as we said, Signar can hit you from really far away. Some of their stuff has gotten a lot stronger, and we're seeing a lot more maneuverability with them. So between Khador and Signar, I think they're very much neck and neck for number 1. Number 2, I'm going to have to agree with you, Kevin, and I'm going to have to say Trolls. They are my faction, so I'm a little bit biased on that, but I agree with you 100% that our units in most cases got stronger. Fenblades with Cleave, they're still fast. They can hit faster, they can hit harder, they hit more. So we have so much maneuverability. We have a lot of movement antics, not as much as Circle, but we do have a lot of things that allows us to get places. And that's really beneficial. Not to mention we have Madrak 2 and our new caster Ragnar, who are both fantastic and just have a lot of play that I can see going into other factions. My third place one that I'm going to have to choose is going to be Circle. I think Circle was really strong in Mark II, and I don't think that they lost any of that. I think they may have gained even more, especially with the new Battle Box caster, Tanith. She's fantastic. She just rocks my socks. She's just so good. If you told me that she was a Crix caster, I would have believed you, just with her spell list and everything. But I think the thing that makes Circle third is the fact that, and this is my opinion, is that they still have their maneuverability and able to get around the board, but they also have a really strong, they have an armor game now because they took casters like Boulder and made them better. And then they took things like the Woldwrath and made it better. A good friend of mine, John Martin, actually sent me a list, and it is so filthy just looking at it between Boulder and 2 Woldwraths that I'm just like, nope, I don't want to see that. Because now they have the new Stone Shaper that can heal everything, and constructs are now like really dedicated to what it is. That, a lot of things like that are getting kind of scary, and they're going to be given some of the other factions who, used to look at them and go, oh, well, you have a lot of defense. Well, now they have a lot of defense, and they have the ability to have a lot of armor in the same list.
That's not bad. So hold on. So we only have a few minutes left. So I do have one question I want to bring up to you guys. So out of all of our top threes, I chose all Warmachine. Both of you guys chose 2 Warmachine and 1 Horde. Technically, Devin chose 3 Warmachine and 1 Horde. Cheater.
No, mine was 2 and 2. It was Khador, Signar, Trolls, Circle.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. You did say Trolls. So with that being said, we had a vast majority of chosen of Warmachine. So what are you guys' thoughts? Do you think that Warmachine came out stronger in this edition than Hordes?
I don't know if it's necessarily stronger. I'm putting them into the top categories because with the changes to Hordes where, several of them lost a Fury on their beasts, several of them had a shift where they used to be extremely beast heavy like in Legion, and now Privateer Press seems to be driving them towards a mix where it's some beasts and some infantry, which they didn't have before. Infantry was anathema to Legion in many lists. The only reason why I didn't put, I picked 2 Hordes faction or 3 Hordes faction is because I think that Hordes is going to have to get used to a little bit more infantry, and that learning curve will delay their ability to be a quote-unquote top 3 contender. I think if we were to give it maybe another year or 2, I don't think that would necessarily be the scenario. I think enough people would have exposure to the Horde side that they could easily be top contenders. But I think right now, as we are, 2 weeks or, from lock and load, I don't think that it's a scenario where Hordes has the skill check to be top contenders right now. It's just they're gonna need more time. Except for Minions. Minions will never be a top contender because they're not a real faction.
I'm gonna say it, and I'm just gonna come out and say it like straight as I can. I think Warmachine is better than Hordes in currently in Mark III. I think that if you look at how when we were leaving Mark II, you look at all the top contenders. I mean, look at the two people that were that took Iron Gauntlet. You had Khador and you had Rhett. You look at any of the top major tournaments, and 90% of the time you're looking at a Warmachine army. And that was before we gave them a new added rule that makes them more efficient than they ever were. Power Up pushes them to the nth degree. So they still have amazing infantry, and now they have amazing jacks who can do so much more now because of Power Up. And sure, Horde's got a lot of good benefits, but I think in the overall picture, Warmachine is the top contender as it stands right now. You had factions like Legion and Circle who gave, some of the Warmachine armies a run for their money, and then you take things like Eyeless Sight and you tone it down. So therefore, the Golden Goose that Legion had that used to be their money shot has now, come back a bit. You have, Circle from before. They had a lot of movement shenanigans, got in the wood and stuff like that. And now you're not blocking things as much anymore unless you're completely in. So you took two niche areas and now you're changing it to the fact of, well, you got to be a little bit more specific with this. Where Warmachine, they basically took a bucket and they just dumped it out and said, here you guys go. And yes, some of their stuff did get toned down, but I think what they were given in trade was so much more that we're going to see Warmachine being the beat stick that's going to hit every single meta very, very hard.
I mean, I got to agree with a lot with what you said. I think that, I think initially Warmachine does have a lot of stronger play because there's a lot more easier combo stuff you could see. But I still want to see what happens over the next couple months with what Horde does. And it might be that Theme Force might be just the way that Hordes improves overall, or it might just be that, hey, as we get more reps in as a community, we'll start seeing better synergies, and at the end maybe Hordes just come out on top. That is actually all the time we have right now, guys. Do you have any last words?
I'm good.
Nope, just thanks for listening, and if you have any questions, feel free to let us know on Twitter, Facebook, or on YouTube.
Awesome. All right, talk to you guys later. Thank you.